The title for today's word is Prayer, an incense before God with my name engraved on it. Prayer, an incense before God with my name engraved on it. As this year now draws to a close, the very first thing we ought to look back on is our posture in prayer. We must examine in prayer whether we have truly lived this God-given year properly before Him, and we must settle it through repentance. In today's passage, it clearly says that the prayers of the saints are incense, a fragrance. The prayers lifted up before God never disappear. Like our former senior pastor once said, our prayers are remembered before Him like incense on which each person's name is engraved. Just as every person has their own unique scent, so every person's prayer has its own unique fragrance. Just as a certain scent makes a particular person come to mind, in the same way, God remembers a person through the prayers of the saints. A prayer that gives off fragrance is a living prayer, a moving prayer. Why? In Joel chapter 2, verse 18, it says that such a prayer will make the Lord zealous and stir up His compassion. Now, in this early morning, as we move toward the very end of the year, with what kind of fragrance are our prayers rising before Him? Have they perhaps become prayers offered merely out of habit, important as even those are, yet dry prayers where only the form remains? Is there a fragrance in our prayers that sets God's heart on fire? Today, as we long to offer a fragrant prayer that God receives, a living prayer, I'd like us to take a moment to examine the state of our prayers. Big number 1, prayer is an incense with your name engraved before it, God. Revelation chapter 5 verse 8 and 8 verse 4 record that the prayers of the saints become incense, are placed in a golden censer, and go up before God out of the angel's hand. But as mentioned before, when God sees that incense, He knows exactly whose prayer it is. The fragrance of Deacon Kim's prayer, Elder Lee's prayer, Deacon Park's prayer. God knows each person together with the scent of their prayer. Psalm chapter 147 verse 4 also says, He counts the number of stars. He gives names to all of them. If God knows the name of every single star in the sky, would He not know the name of us, His children, and the prayers we lift up? Psalm chapter 34 verse 15 also says, The eyes of the Lord are toward the righteous, and His ears are open to their cry. This means that God knows the name of the one who prays and personally listens to their voice. Therefore, the prayers we offer become the owners of that incense. Our names and our incense are remembered by God, and when the time comes, He will surely cause that fragrance to blossom as an answer. Big number 2, a prayer that gives off fragrance is a living, moving prayer. A prayer that gives off fragrance is a living, moving prayer. What does it mean that prayer must have a fragrance? It means it is a living prayer and a moving prayer. Can prayer really move? In Joel chapter 2, verse 18, it says, prayer moves the very heart of God. The verse says, then the Lord will be zealous for his land and will have pity on his people. The earnest prayers of the saints make God zealous. When our prayers rise before his throne like incense, that fragrance shakes the heart of God and ignites the flames of his mercy. He breathes in that fragrance and has pity on us. Do you remember the 4 kinds of incense placed on the altar of incense? They are stacte, onycha, galbanum, and frankincense. Among them, galbanum in Hebrew is called helbana, which means abundance, richness, and fertility. This incense is obtained from the resin at the lower part of the stem of a plant called ferula, and it is known to have a very strong scent. Because it contains organic sulfur compounds, it smells similar to onions, and thus it is said to have the effect of keeping animals and pests away. In ancient Egypt, due to its unique property of preventing decay, it was used as a preservative fragrance. The interesting thing is this: when used by itself, this incense has an extremely pungent and unpleasant odor, but when it is mixed with other fragrances, the most remarkable characteristic of galbanum is that when someone is bitten by a snake, if they ingest its resin, it has such a powerful detoxifying. If that's the case, shouldn't our prayers become like the prayer of galbanum? Like squeezing out the resin of galbanum, a prayer that kind of prayer melts away the poison of many sins. Carried within themselves the venom of the serpent. Luke chapter 22, verse 44 records, and being in agony, he was praying very fervently, and his sweat became like drops of blood falling down upon the ground. In that moment, when Jesus poured out all his strength and very lifeblood in prayer, it says that an angel from heaven appeared and strengthened him. It was the moment he was pouring himself out like resin, becoming the sacrifice. That prayer was a perfect galbanum prayer, the prayer that detoxified the poison of sin and death for all mankind. When our prayers become this earnest, God breathes in that fragrance and begins a work of healing. Broken hearts are restored, sick bodies are renewed, and diseased souls come back to life. However, the problem is that we often fail to pray with such desperation. Prayer without incense, without heart, prayer where only the outer form remains, cannot move the heart of God. Psalm chapter 62, verse 8, let us read all together. Trust in him at all times, O people. Pour out your heart before him. God is a refuge for us. Selah. Dear beloved saints, now we must pray with a heart that strives and struggles, with a deeper earnestness and focus, like King Hezekiah, like Jesus. Within us, there still remain sinful habits, wounds, pride that are like the venom of a serpent. But we said that the prayer of Gabanim has the power to neutralize that poison, just like Jesus did. Just as a magnifying glass gathers sunlight into a single point and sets paper on fire, when our hearts are gathered and focused in one place, our prayer becomes one that sets the heart of God ablaze. Such focused prayer, such desperate prayer, will transform the rest of our year and renew our souls. I'm going to conclude the word for today. Today, I pray that our prayers will become prayers that move the heart of God. Prayers offered formally or merely out of habit cannot remain before Him. But prayers that are burned and poured out with all our heart rise to heaven and stay before Him as incense. That incense has a name. As God breathes it in, He says, "This is the prayer of my beloved child." This is a prayer of Deaconess Kim. God will know. The God who knows the name of each and every star sees, hears, and remembers every prayer we offer. We must ask ourselves, is my prayer right now rising up before God as a fragrance? Prayer is the breath of life. We know this. When prayer stops, our souls begins to dry up. Prayer is something that we know, but we are not able to fully accomplish. It's not that we are too busy to pray. Rather, because we do not pray, our hearts become tangled and our lives become chaotic. Now, standing at the edge of the year, I hope this dawn prayer time will be filled with prayers that He will remember, prayers that set His heart on fire, prayers that lift up a pleasing fragrance to Him. And so, I once again pray that the end of this year will be filled with fragrance of repentance, and that the beginning of the new year will be filled with a fragrance of grace for all of our beloved saints.